The book of Leviticus begins with a listing of some of the offerings that the children of Israel were permitted to bring before the Lord. These were offerings of things that were at hand, and it depended on your station in life what you might bring. The rich person could bring a bull. The landowner could bring a sheep or a goat. A poorer person would bring a turtle dove or a pair of pigeons, and others would bring grain offerings. Chapter 1 of Leviticus brought before us a burnt offering that the offerer freely brought to the priest. He laid his hands on it, and it was accepted to make atonement for him. That is, it symbolizes his complete dedication and devotion to God, and the animal died that the offerer might live to serve God. But not everyone could afford that, to bring a bull or a goat or a lamb. They were free to bring what was appropriate for them. And so we have in chapter 2 instructions concerning the grain offering. When anyone offers a grain offering to the Lord, his offering shall be of fine flour, and he shall pour oil on it, and put frankincense on it. He shall bring it to Aaron's sons, the priests, one of whom shall take from it his handful of fine flour, and oil with all the frankincense, and the priest shall burn it as a memorial on the altar, an offering made by fire, a sweet aroma to the Lord. The rest of the grain offering shall be Aaron's and his sons. It is most holy of the offerings to the Lord made by fire. And if you bring as an offering a grain offering baked in the oven, it shall be of unleavened cakes of fine flour mixed with oil, or unleavened wafers anointed with oil. But if your offering is a grain offering baked in a pan, it shall be of fine flour, unleavened, mixed with oil. You shall bring it in pieces and pour oil on it. It is a grain offering. If your offering is a grain offering baked in a covered pan, it shall be made of fine flour with oil. You shall bring the grain offering that is made of these things to the Lord, and when it is presented to the priest, he shall bring it to the altar. Then the priest shall take from the grain offering a memorial portion, and burn it on the altar. It is an offering made by fire, a sweet aroma to the Lord. And what is left of the grain offering shall be Aaron's and his sons. It is most holy of the offerings to the Lord made by fire. No grain offering which you bring to the Lord shall be made with leaven, for you shall burn no leaven or any honey in any offering to the Lord made by fire. As for the offering of the firstfruits, you shall offer them to the Lord, but they shall not be burned on the altar for a sweet aroma. And every offering of your grain offering you shall season with salt. You shall not allow the salt of the covenant of your God to be lacking from your grain offering. With all your offerings you shall offer salt. If you offer a grain offering of your firstfruits to the Lord, you shall offer for the grain offering of your firstfruits green heads of grain roasted on the fire, grain beaten from full heads, and you shall put oil on it and lay frankincense on it. It is a grain offering. Then the priest shall burn the memorial portion, part of its beaten grain and part of its oil, with all the frankincense, as an offering made by fire to the Lord. My name's Arthur. Thank you for joining me as we share these verses together. The grain offering is obviously also extremely important. All of the offerings by fire were very significant, and the emphasis is made that there are particular rules. So the grain offering, or a cereal offering, it's the primary offering, was to be of fine flour. It could be flour itself, or it could be prepared in various ways. And when it was brought, it had to be brought with oil, that is olive oil, and with frankincense, and with salt. So these things pointed to the fact that this was to be a holy offering. In particular, there was to be no leaven, for leaven speaks of sin. Salt speaks of purity. The frankincense speaks of the aroma that is made, that it might be a sweet smelling sacrifice to the Lord. But the big contrast between the animal burnt offerings and the grain offering is that only a portion is burned, a handful is burned on the altar. The bulk of the offering goes to Aaron and his sons, along with the oil that came with the offering goes to Aaron and his sons, for them to eat. But it is holy to the Lord. It is specifically for the priests. And this was part of God's provision for the priests, for their daily bread. As they serve at the altar with the freewill offerings of the people, for their service, they receive a portion of the offering. But again, notice that the offerer brings the offering, but the priest is an intermediary in actually offering the offering. So it is when we come to God, we come and offer ourselves, but we offer to the Lord Jesus Christ, who is pictured in all of these things, but particularly he is the high priest that makes our offering to God acceptable to God. Nevertheless, it is our responsibility to bring a pure and clean offering, without leaven, with salt, with oil, and with frankincense. There's a sense of joy as we bring our offerings, whatever they might be, to the Lord. For the Lord requires offerings from what we have, not from what we do not have. So there's no point comparing what we give with what somebody else gives, because somebody else is in a different circumstance, and what they bring is their business, what we bring is our business. But it is, as we said, a free will offering to the Lord. These are acts of worship and of dedication, that he might draw near to us. We also have the offering of first fruits. It was important for the Jewish people to acknowledge that everything that they had came from God. And so at the beginning of the harvest, they brought the first heads of grain, even while they were still green. They brought them to the Lord, that the Lord might bless the harvest, that the green heads might completely fill, and that the harvest be brought in before the rains come and destroy them, or indeed before fire comes and burns them up. Whatever the dangers are, there's a short period of time in which to bring in the harvest. But as the crop began to mature, then the children of Israel were to bring the first ripe grains before the Lord in thanksgiving. Now they were also to bring the first fruits of all the good produce that the Lord gave them. It says, as for the offering of the first fruits, you shall offer the grain offering of your first fruits, green heads of grain, roasted on the fire, grain beaten from full heads. You shall put oil on it and lay frankincense on it. It is a grain offering. And the priest shall burn the memorial portion, part of its beaten grain and part of its oil, with all the frankincense, as an offering made by fire to the Lord. So again, portion is given. The one thing that is striking is the mention that there was not to be any honey in any offering to the Lord made by fire. Honey would speak of sweetness, natural sweetness. The sweetness of the offering, though, was to be provided by the frankincense, not by honey. As we've said, these offerings are pictures for us to learn from, rather than actions for us to follow. There is no temple. We can't go to Jerusalem now and offer these sacrifices, but they symbolize our offering of ourselves as a living sacrifice to God. And the way that we offer ourselves is with the things that God gives us for our daily sustenance, that we return portion of that to the Lord for his honour and his glory, always acknowledging that it is God who provides for us every day.